Hello, everyone. Here we are with another special final cut edition co-review. People seem to have been enjoying these, and I enjoy them because I get to talk to the lovely Katie Glidewell, the bald in front, formerly known as the blonde in front. She's kind of got that Ripley from Alien 3 look going on today. And I bring up Alien because yes, we are doing an extended special edition as we started doing here regularly of a new film, and it's oh nice, nice. Look at that. We're gonna talk Alien Romulus. How you doing?
I've got so much stuff from Alien, it's kind of crazy.
You do have a lot of stuff. Do you have the soundtrack on vinyl though? See, I pulled that out for display.
I do. I don't have it on me.
Just the first one. I gotta get Aliens on. I have
Ooh, I
Alien.
like Alien, and I also have the Alien sunglasses.
Those are wonderful. Those are wonderful. I love all your little tchotchkes you bring to these shows that you manage to get. It
All my
warms my
stuff.
collector heart. It really warms my collector heart.
All my
Going,
stuff and my things and my stuff.
yes. I didn't pull it out because I didn't go digging for it, but uh, back when I was a kid, they did this line of movie uh, uh, licensing product, and they were die cast figures. So I got a little die cast xenomorph.
Nice.
And because it was the late 80s, early 90s, let's do toy merchandise of rated R properties. So Micro Machines did that line where they did Aliens. So there's the transport, the wheel with the tank. I got a mini one of those. And
Nice.
it had a wonderful lander too. That the I forget the name of it. Yeah, that it was cool. They were cool. Micro Machines were the bomb back
I
then,
mean,
man.
it's a different age, when you would make stuff for kids that there's no way these kids should be seeing these films. And yet we're going to have different, little things that they're going to play with them even though they have no idea what the movie is going to be about, because you know what? That's called imagination, kids.
It
Even though
is.
you did not see the movie, it's using your imagination.
That's right. When you get RoboCop action figures for kids, and a cartoon along with the Toxic Avenger. I mean, we could go on and on, but
Oh, yeah.
actually, it's appropriate that we bring up the retro stuff because Alien Romulus is
Ooh,
actually a film that takes place between Alien and Aliens.
yes.
Now, if you're a horror fan, you're used to movies like this by now, where they're like, "Oh, well, we'll do this in between movie," and they usually don't turn out. But we'll get into that in a minute. But Katie, you give a little summary of what Alien Romulus is about?
So, Alien Romulus is about this ragtag group of, I don't want to say children, they're young adults,
They
yet
are, yeah.
they have grown up on this planet that basically is kind of like what Owen Wilson was talking about. I feel like an Armageddon that's just like, hell with a lot of dust.
Yeah.
And for some reason, even when they're born, I guess they have to owe the Whaling Company like certain credits. And if you work them off, you get to, then go off planet. Thing is, what big business, capitalism, and all the good stuff that goes along with that, when you work off those credits, oh, guess what? Now you owe more. So now you're going to go into this, probably going to have to work in this mine that basically killed everyone's parents and different things. So basically, you're going to die.
Hmm.
And Rain, who's played by Kaylee Spaney, and her uh, synthetic brother, played by Dave
Yes.
Johns, who's Andy, who is an android. She's like, okay, you know what? We need to figure out a way off this. So they go with their friends who are like, look, we have our ship. We can go up to this ship that's up in space, get these little tanks that can let us do a full time and in cryo sleep, and then we'll go to the place that we want to go, and then we can you know do our stuff there. So we're off this planet. We don't have to do anything with Wayland. Little issues with that I can think of, especially when you see the ship that they're talking about, but we'll get to that later. So they make it up to what they think is a ship. Turns out it's a space station, which there you go. Plans. If you already don't know that, I would say abort the plans right then. And the planet that they're on has rings, so they have to get these tanks for the cryo sleep before the space station apparently is going to fall into the rings. I think within 36 hours.
Mhm.
Now you'd think that's plenty of time. These kids. Well, of course, something goes awry. It turns out the 36 hours, I think, gets knocked down to like 4,
Mhm.
and we see a lot of different the whole thing with going to get the cryo tubes. um you think it's going to be an easy speasy quick thing. Of course it's not, because if it was, then we wouldn't have an almost 2-hour movie. um there's a couple things though that I want to say. There's a guy named Bjorn who's played by Spike Fern.
Yes.
So he's supposed to be kind of the, not really antagonist, but he's definitely sort of a dick, and
Yes.
especially a dick towards Andy. Here's the thing though, with these films, even if there's dick, you need to feel for these people, because there's going to
Mhm.
be aliens, there's going to be xenomorphs, there's going to be face huggers and all that stuff. Here's my problem with this character. I needed closed captioning, because every time he spoke, all I could hear was like, "I'm from London." I could not understand what he was saying. And
Okay, sure.
I could tell by the tone of his voice that he was supposed to be saying, like, "Oh, that's supposed to be really hard hitting. I have no idea what you just said, but I know it's supposed to be snarky, so I can tell by your tone." And then he's really being starting toward Andy, because apparently something happened recently to Bjorn's mom in the mines, and some humans were killed. And of course, it's like, kill 3, save a dozen, one of those things. Unfortunately, I could not understand what this character was saying, the majority of the time.
Oh.
And then when he was really trying to be like nasty towards Andy, then Andy stood up to him and he's like, "Oh, oh, 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 oh." And I'm like, all right, now you're just being a little bitch. So now I don't even like you even more. It's like, oh my goodness. um, Lo and behold, surprise, they do something stupid, and guess what? This space station has a shit ton of facehuggers on there. And it turns out a hell of a lot of xenomorphs. So as the plot goes, thickens, all that stuff, I really got the feel that, you know what? If this was a video game, this would be freaking amazing, because they have different air, and what I'm talking about, Mark. They have different areas that they go in, and then it's like they shut the door and stuff like that. And I'm like, I would love to play this game. I think this game would be awesome. They've got some anti-gravity thing with where Rain is like, we're doing spoilers, right?
Yes, we're doing spoilers.
Yeah. So Rain is like shooting these xenomorphs, and the acid blood. She knows there's acid blood, but there's anti-gravity, so the blood is like, floating around and all that stuff. She's like doing all this stuff, shoot, 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 all these xenomorphs, and there's all this like acid floating in the air. That was awesome, because she like weaves and dives and all that stuff. It's like she's swimming in air, and that was beautiful. Um, there's a number of scenes though that if you are familiar with any of the Alien films, you are going to recognize. One of the things about the film, because I've said I liked it more than the things that I disliked, but here's the things that I dislike. I love, and I am a huge, obviously, since you can see the stuff around me, I'm a huge nostalgia nerd. Like, I love all the stuff. I love, the Winx. and like the nods and stuff like that. But when you get to have so many winks and nods and all that, I mean, it looks like that on because there's just too many. There's
Mhm.
like I think about 20 from, I mean, and I'm not talking about just one. There's
Yeah.
like you definitely have callbacks to Alien, Aliens, even Alien 3, Covenant. I saw a few things from Covenant and even a little bit from Prometheus. Um it was just too much for me. Like, I mean, like I said, I love that stuff, but it's like, come on. That, I mean, it took the originality that I thought was going on in the beginning and kind of threw that out the door. But then I was realizing later on that, knowing the director, who's Fede Alvarez, who you might know from the Evil Dead reimagining and Don't Breathe, when I was thinking about it, this kind of is Don't Breathe in space.
Mhm.
Because there's a number of things, but I will say this about the originality though. There's a number of things that they enlighten us about face huggers and xenomorphs that I have not seen before. That face huggers are, they can't they're blind, so they can only hear what's going on and stuff like that. And they also can tell by your body heat where you are.
Mhm.
So, I mean, when Rain and this guy that she likes, Tyler, who's played by Archie Renew, I think that's how you say his name,
Yeah.
they're going through this whole area that has all these face huggers, and they're like sweating because they have to, like, it has to be 98 degrees, and they're quiet, but you see the face huggers. That to me was okay. I'm going to give you guys that. That was very cool because I've never seen that before. I kind of imagine that's what facehuggers did and stuff like that because there's some way, but
Mhm.
I never thought about them, not being able to see and only being able to like hear and the whole body heat thing. There's also a section where you see like the uh xenomorph, like with, like, as a butterfly does, go from like the chrysalis to the cocoon to the actual butterfly coming out. That again was a very, I liked seeing that because that was again just different and original. We've seen what happens when you know the facehugger implants the seed in there, it comes out little xenomorph, and then it kind of sheds its skin to become a different thing. We don't necessarily see when it has that cocoon stage, which they did with this. I thought that was, that was definitely an original tactic, which, I mean, these movies have been going on close to 50 years, 45 this year. And to show that was very cool. But then I was thinking, it's like, okay, so the not being able to see, only being able to hear. And then you've got these kids who are like, sort of like, blue collar, try
Mhm.
to get to a better place. I'm like, yeah, this is Don't Breathe in Space. Okay. Wow. So there's that. I had issues with Don't Breathe, especially when you've got the only reason why he kind of picks up on those kids being in his house because he can smell their dirty, nasty boots, which I'm like, sir, I think you would have been able to smell that girl living with a mom and boyfriend who smoked 24/7 in a trailer. Like, no offense. That was one of the worst things I thought about that film. It's like if the mom and boyfriend had not smoked, that would be one thing. But I digress. I thought the production design was absolutely incredible. I mean,
Mhm.
who was it? Naaman Marshall, mwah, chef's kiss, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful,
I
absolutely incredible. The
I
CGI, was
I nearly popped when I saw CRT monitors because I'm sitting there watching this and they do that opening with in the lab or whatever, and they have the scavenge ship and they have them waking up and they're doing that pan through the control and we see the abbreviation for mother and I'm like, okay, that's a nice touch.
yeah,
But when I saw CRT monitors and I saw all the hard switches and actual buttons and the practical sets, I did pop for that. I was like, okay, you've caught me, and that's within the first few minutes. I'm like, okay, you have me, you're trying. a lot harder than other legacy sequels to go, this is where it's at, and
Yeah.
we are going to make it as much as possible fit as far as the production design, and I think they succeed there quite a bit.
Oh, by far. I mean, I would say the production design for this film is one of the best I've seen all year. And
Mhm.
I do apologize. I forgot at the beginning, you see that this ship that's like going through like debris and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and they bring in what looks like a rock. They cut it open inside the lab. They open it up and they take something out, and then when they show the audience back to looking at the rock, what it is obviously is a xenomorph. What we find out is not only is it a xenomorph, but it is the xenomorph from Alien, because this movie takes place, I believe, 20 years after the original Alien.
Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Aliens 2122. This is 2142.
Mhm.
So there's a number of things with that, since it's only like a 20-year difference. I love the fact that they have different aspects of it that are very similar to Alien, because with a 20-year difference, there's not going to be
A
um,
huge, right.
that much difference in what these things were set up by the Wayland Company and all that. But it turns out that the space station was doing all of these like medical research, because Lord knows I mean, Wayland had a major hard on for these animals. And it's like, my God, how much money did you need to have from
Mhm.
the war division to get on this? Because damn, man, it's like, I would think that, I mean, if one, they don't even know about Alien, if they have this, and then they're giving Ripley shit about aliens, shame on you, because that means you guys knew. So shame on you. You like making fun of that lady with a cat who no one liked on her ship, but who cares, because she was a smart one. Um and that to me was like, well, screw you, Wayland Company. You knew all along, which of course they did, because it's a business and all this. Let's talk about the elephant in the room that I think probably is the worst part of the film. Um, Now, as I said, there's different things in the film that are very much like Alien. What's the one thing that's really like Alien, Mark?
Uh,
The movie.
yeah, oh, the first one?
Yeah. A
Uh,
guy there he was a little beat up.
oh, yeah, no, uh, yes, I actually loved the callback with him only because it wasn't more than just a one-off Easter egg. We actually have Rook here, and he's a major part in it, and we already had established in previous Alien films that, the synthetics are kind of like replicants in many ways in that they make a model, and so there's models that that look the same. They I mean, Wayland, we know, Lance Hendrickson's was actually he created a few in his own likeness as well. Uh, and especially if you look at the comics and that, they touch on it quite a bit, that they do have different models of him. So having them in it, uh I didn't mind because he actually played a major role, having the likeness of Ian Holm, and they got the permission from his estate to use his likeness. I liked that only because that model shows you just how much that model is just a tool for what like, like, that model is, oh, they used to be twitchy. Yeah, yeah, no, they wouldn't be twitchy. They followed the rules of Wayland, and I liked it. At quite a little bit at first, I almost wish, though, they had left his face kinda messed up or left it from angles, and you just heard the voice, and then maybe not get to see his face until, like, maybe near the end a little bit, or you just never quite sure, never give the audience, like, a full, like, because his face was all, like, covered up in the white goo and that. I would've just left his face like that, you know? Um, but I'm taking it you didn't like that.
I liked it somewhat. The CGI though, it's like that's where I actually thought the CGI in the entire film was pretty spot on
Mhm.
and impressive, especially the stuff in space. I mean, that's
Oh,
some
the
of the
space stuff.
the
Oh,
base stuff. I mean, seriously blew me away. If you can see it in IMAX, see it. It is just honestly breathtaking. When you get to one of the things is that when two of the guys, Tyler and Bjorn, get to the med vac or
yeah.
med part of the lab, there's a giant hole, and there's like this being that's like halfway, has his face down. So when they're like moving him around, they realize he's a synthetic. And as Mark was saying, his name is Rook, but he looks like Ash from Alien. Now, instead of like Ash from Alien being like a little bit empathetic, somewhat kind of even faking it, Rook just doesn't.
No.
Rook is all about the company and doing that. And because Andy, the android, because he's little, he's got something wrong with one of his parts. They like put Rook's like little thing inside him,
Oh,
and when they lift him up, yeah, it's hit or miss, honestly. Like sometimes he looks really good. Sometimes he looks just like Ian Holm from Alien, and it's a little discerning. A lot of the times he doesn't, though. I will say this: when they have him, when they're back on their ship and you see like through the monitor the Ian Holm,
mhm,
that I think looks exactly like him. And I wish they would have done more with that. When they have him like up close and personal and you see his full face,
mhm.
I can see, Mark, what you're saying. I would have liked, yeah, maybe wait until the end or have a reveal or something. But I think you need to know that it's like immediately, that it's like almost like a oh yeah, I don't know. It's almost
Well,
like,
you could have left it prosthetic, have it somewhat look like him, just not, you would could save on the deep fake.
yeah,
I think the deep fake didn't bother me that much because he was robotic and the synths tend to act more robotic when they get damaged. So I guess for me, it didn't. There were a couple of scenes where I wish they would have handled it differently. Overall, I didn't mind because they usually have him static. It's when he was trying to move when it became evident, a little bit more. And I think that's the one the one disadvantage of doing so much practical, which apparently Fede Alvarez was very adamant on when he went to the producers. Producers wanted to do a lot more CGI, and he said, "Screw that." Apparently, his from what I read in an interview, he said his approach was, "If we can do it practical, we're doing it practical." So, like a lot of the face huggers they had, while some are CGI, a lot of the face huggers were robotic. They were radio controls, and I've seen the footage, and it's impressive to see in this day and age. They made a full body xenomorph on this crane that they could lift up and it got up on its legs and that they show some behind the scenes video out there. And I'm like, damn, the problem is when you have practical effects looking that good, the CGI tends to stand
yeah,
out more than, than and so but I didn't mind overall because again, at least they had him, and it's funny because they had the guy down, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna do Ian Holm, and you don't get to see the half body, you just see the melted, you know, and then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe not. The minute our two of our crew are trapped in this room where they're trying to get these containers and the face huggers hatch from their containment units, and they said, oh, we need to unlock, we need a science officer. I'm like, I know what the half body was. I knew it. And then they did it. And it this was one of my favorite moments in all honesty, and why I think more people with everything with this film, everybody needs to be talking more about David Johnson's performance in this
oh yeah,
because his character starts off, and I'm glad they made him a synth because as much as I'm all for representation in a film, I'm like, okay, here we go, with this character who was acting a little bit he was acting a little bit like he was on the spectrum or whatnot. And I'm like, what's the angle with this? I don't mind at all, but it's just you get into an area where you're like, okay, be careful with your portrayal with this character. I knew where he was going to go onto a space station with a bunch of bad aliens, and people are going to try to convince him to do things. I'm like, okay, but then they made him a synth, and I'm like, okay, at least that explains a little bit more of the behavior. So we're not just making this character a specific way because in a forced way, I should say.
Yeah.
So they took a creative way to still represent an individual, without having them actually be that. So they didn't necessarily have to be as careful with how they portray that character. Because then you realize, oh, it's a glitchy synth. Okay, now I can kind of put it into this compartment versus if he was a human and he was like this, and it's like, yeah, what are you doing taking him, up into space for no reason whatsoever?
Well, and I thought that was very interesting too that they mentioned, when everyone's in sleep, that Andy will still be awake and,
Mhm.
watching out for them. But then when they get to whatever Orli
Mhm.
7 or whatever the place is, that there aren't supposed to be
Right.
any synthetics there, which I was like, okay, so this is a brand new thing that I've not heard of from any of the other alien films. Yet, at the same time, when you think about it, in it's not like they have more than one synthetic
Right.
on any of these alien films. So I'm wondering, it's like, okay, well, then maybe that's the way with all of them. Like once
Mhm.
they get to their destination and, they have to colonize, then they're supposed to get rid of the synthetic and do all that. I don't know. But I thought
Well,
that was very interesting that they made that kind of a jab that it's like, you can't come to the surface, but we'll get you out of here. And he's like, I'm going to do whatever is best for Rain because Rain's dad programmed Andy to be that way. And then, Andy takes a little jab at Rain. It's like, I can't believe that at one point someone gets locked behind a door and she's like, I can't believe you left her there. It's like, yeah. And he says something like, yeah, it doesn't feel good being left behind. And I'm like, ooh, damn, Andy, look at you get that sass. Ooh.
I just love the change they had when because I fully expected when they gave him the disc from the other synth, who we weren't aware yet that it was Ian Holmes' synth model. His character completely changes, like on a dime, and I loved that about it because David just shows such a range, and you suddenly get this underlying statement that's still running through all the aliens, that corporations taking control and turning nice people not so nice. And that's what happens to Andy. Andy goes to a very sympathetic, very warm, caring character who is just looking out for Rain. He gets this disc, this corporate disc that allows him access everywhere on the ship, but it starts corrupting him, so to speak, to be more of a toe the line corporate individual. And I thought that was very interesting. And David plays it so well. So well. I was like, why aren't more people talking about him? I know they're talking about everything, but I'm like, I loved this character from start to finish. I really did.
I would say honestly they are talking like I
Are they?
know if I've heard anybody say
Mhm.
anything about the acting, it's definitely Kaylee Spaney, but more David Johnson as Andy because he definitely has way more range with his character than anybody else. Because and as you said, he goes from this empathetic, sweet individual whose main goal is to protect Rain. And then and that's the thing for me, it's
Mhm.
not so much that he was corrupted as much as, Rook and all that
Mhm.
stuff. But I don't know. And this is me. And I know I probably got a heart of coal. And as we, if you've seen me review other films, like, why did you just kill him? Why did you just throw him off the roof? Um, there's certain things that happen in this film that they're like you could have helped them and all that stuff. It's like and it's like if we did that then we'd all be dead and all that stuff. And it's like he's just thinking very Spock-like. He's just thinking,
Yes.
yeah. And my thing was that it's like, I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing. I know that's not human, but at the same time, I think he's actually doing way more than he would have done if Rook was completely in control of him. Because
Oh
as I
yeah.
said, in that certain area, if this was all like the corporation and
Mhm.
Rook, I think he would have opened the door and let the alien get, multiple people who are left and stuff like that. But I think he was thinking more logically and thinking like, no, if I do this, then it's like
Right.
instead of I'm sacrificing one and saving two, similar to his predator, one like him down on the planet where you have to sacrifice three to save like eight and stuff
Right.
like that. Another thing, God, the visuals in this are just so amazing. Like they
For a
have,
for a science fiction for a modern science fiction film, and from what we've been getting, and I will bring them up, the comic book films, because let's face it, over the last 15 years, what has dominated the science fiction world has been comic book films for the most part. You've gotten some other sci-fi films, but nothing to the extent of what we've got as far as the scope of comic book films. The scope of sci-fi, how this felt so wonderfully sci-fi, and like I said, it felt visceral, it felt tactile. This is not a flashy, smooth. Your None of your displays are flashy in
yeah.
this. They're all on monitors, and they're looking a little. The graphics wise are fairly simple. I mean, just like from the original Aliens, there were very few things that gave it a modern feel, and that's why. Yeah, you're right. This is some nice hardcore sci-fi.
Well, I mean, there's a scene where when you get into the med lab, there's a scene where you can see they do like an X-ray thing, which is
Mhm.
like, all right, we know where this is gonna go, but
Right.
that's fine. Still show it because it looks badass as hell. I mean, it looks amazing. And there is a scene though where one of the xenomorphs, I feel like did, and this is me because and this is when I so did a xenomorph actually burst out of Rook? Because I say that because there is a xenomorph that's close to the end where it has a little bit of like a little bit that you
Yeah.
see like electrical. So to me, that Rook was like torn apart, but we know aliens, we know Alien, we know, but on that part of it, I was like, okay, is this actually a xenomorph that was made from Rook? Because it seemed like there's some like a little electrical hardware possibly that's like in this bad boy
Mm.
that maybe, he's wanting his like little bit of offspring to make it out. And with each film, because believe me, I've rewatched them all and all this, I do know that, I mean, look, xenomorphs could basically almost live inside anything and,
Mhm.
come out. So I'm not necessarily sure that's a completely, stupid thing to say. I mean, there is some sort of thing with these synthetics where they're able to like grow hair and do different things. So I'm sure with Rook's case, it could happen that, you
Mhm.
could inhabit a alien in
The
there, but
synth,
I don't
yeah.
know. Was that my bad or did you
No,
notice that too?
I I noticed something with one of them, but I wasn't sure if it was that or if it accidentally got fused with something that melted from possibly its blood or whatnot that fell on it, that might have, fused with it a bit so that it wasn't actually, like, naturally part of it, but it was from possibly some mishap or other that it was attached to it, but it could very well be from the synth. Either way, yeah, with the aliens, and that's what I liked with this as well, is that it added a little more understanding with them. And you're right. I even mentioned it in my 1 minute review that there were almost too many Easter eggs when they weren't needed. The Easter eggs weren't needed. And the one in particular, and I didn't get a debate on Facebook, but we kind of were at odds with it. Is I'm like, you know, until like the last until they get into the black goo stuff, I'm like, I'm really into this. And then it's like, okay, we're doing a callback to Prometheus and Covenant. Okay, I get that. I get the black goo. I get that it can possibly, we know the effects of the black goo. That's even fine. I'm like, okay, I kind of came to accept that with the way they set it up and in the context. I'm like, okay, that's all I need for the reference of the Covenant. And then we get to the last like 5 minutes of this film, like the big epic thing, and we get the woman who, the one character who's been pregnant. He she's been cut by one of the xenomorphs, and she's afraid she's gonna die. She heard someone say this black goo, if it binds with her, it'll save her life. So she injects herself with it, though everybody said no, when no one's around. And so you know where this is going. And then we get a Prometheus. What, I forgot what they're called. The founder
Engineers.
engineers. We suddenly get a alien engineer who's more engineer than alien, but still this kind of. And I'm like, I didn't need to see Alien Resurrection callback because I was just having albino alien baby flashbacks, and it was not good flashbacks. And I'm like, you did it didn't need this. They could have ended with them in the pods and leave it a mystery of what happened to her and then just have them go off into space. We didn't need this extra like 8 or 10 minute battle scene with an engineer alien hybrid that came from her pregnant friend. As much as it was a bit tension filled, at the same time, I'm like, I wish it would have ended 10 minutes sooner. Otherwise, I would have probably gave it 5 instead of 4.5. But this ending nearly ruined it for me.
See, I would rather have that callback than when Andy and Rain are going through the kind of like the elevator shaft, and
Oh,
then she falls, and then
mhm.
the xenomorph is in her face, and then Andy comes down, and then he gets down on the floor and he shoots it, and he's like, "Get away from her, you bitch!" And I'm like, okay, you know what? Look, one, you haven't said a curse word the entire time. Two, that is such a like throw to aliens, which has nothing to do with this. So it's like it just came out of nowhere, which to me was like, all right, that's really pandering to fanfare. I get it, it's all the nods and stuff, but I felt like there were other things that were like little scene when Tyler was teaching Rain how to like,
Yeah.
hold the gun and stuff. I'm like, I like that little nod to it, that little wink
Mhm.
to aliens and all that stuff. There's tons of those in there. But that whole thing was like, get away from me, you bitch. I was like, you would
Yeah.
never
Well,
say that. And it's like, come on. Now you're just like trying to be like, here you go. Here you go, guys. You like this? Yeah, because you know where you know where that's from. That's not. It's from Aliens. You see what we did there? Okay, you like that? Okay. It's like no, just have some more original shit. Like he didn't have to. He. It would have been better if he would have called it an asshole because he would already there was already like talking about how he's the asshole, not Andy, but other people.
yeah.
That would have been a word that he would have had more familiarity with,
Mhm.
and it was in the film. That's what I would have liked. It's like, take that, you asshole. I'm like, yeah, Andy, you tell him, not this whole get away from her, you bitch. I'm like, but
Yeah, well,
it's soon. My thing is soon as they talked about the friend being pregnant, I figured there was going to be something that was going to happen.
right.
But as soon as you got to the black ooze, I was like, okay, now I definitely know what's going to happen. Like none of that was a surprise to me. It was a surprise. Big spoiler, everybody, if you have not seen this, which I do, even if we've spoiled all this stuff for you, see the movie anyway because it's beautiful. And honestly, like I said, there's lots of things I don't like about it. But there's more things that I do like about it than I don't like about it. There's a scene with the engineer xenomorph alien thing when it comes out of because she's not even 2 months pregnant.
Yeah.
It comes out of one, you've got that birthing scene, which it's like, damn, you guys went there. Nice. Two, the xenomorph gets up, goes to the friend who just goes to its mother and basically starts breastfeeding, which I'm like, okay, I don't even know what I'm watching right now. I like it because you guys are going for it again. So way to go. That is some effed up shit though. That is some
Yeah.
messed up stuff. That is some messed up stuff. I will say that right there. But I mean, this guy that played the engineer Xenomorph, he's got to be 7 feet tall. I mean, that is an
Mhm.
actual actor. That
Yeah.
again, practical effects. Mwah. Fetty Alvarez, thank you so much. Keep the CGI with space. We obviously can't do real space and all that stuff, but these practical effects, I am digging them. I love them. Uh, Honestly, you're making me really want all the rest of these films. I mean, I just watched Covenant and I just watched um Prometheus. Prometheus had a lot of practical effects. Covenant, I thought
Yeah.
definitely needed more practical effects. They had a lot of
Mhm.
CGI with some of those things that I think was a detriment to the film. Some cool things too, but I definitely feel like those little um baby whatever they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a detriment to it. But this one, oh yeah, I know you didn't like the engineer guy. He
No,
was
he still looked no, he looked great. Like I said, I just and I've had people try to sell me on the movie, and I'm sorry, I've watched it probably a half a dozen times at this point. Alien 3, I paid money for it in the theater.
me
I
too.
I did not like Alien 3 when it came out, and people are like, "Oh, well, you gotta appreciate it more." You get and I've given that film, and it's just one of those films that whatever it just does not hit with me. I just can't. And maybe it's the same thing. And I had this discussion with some friends earlier. I'm like, maybe it's the whole Dark Fate reason of why Dark Fate pissed me off within the first 5 minutes of the film. The first time, yeah, this is more spoilers. First, like 10 minutes of Alien 3, who dies like off screen just because they couldn't cast them? Dix and Newt. Like they went through all this shit only to die in their pods on a planet off screen unceremoniously when they didn't have to. They easily with Alien 3, and this is one of those things where if someone would have gave it some thought, because Alien 3, the pods get ejected to the prison planet because a facehugger sneaks melts into a pod and Ripley. We find out later it's Ripley that it gets impregnated with, who gets impregnated with. They could have easily just had her pod get ejected, and Newton Hicks could have stayed in cryo as the ship flies away because the cryostasis pod that she's in gets ejected because of the face hugger malfunction and the acid blood. They could have did that, and I think I would have liked Alien 3 a lot better. But how they unceremoniously take two characters that you love and you fall and you're pulling for out of Aliens and just unceremoniously toss them aside just because you couldn't get the casting. I'm like, come on. There's a 8 million different creative ways you could have handled that and you didn't. Just like Dark Fate, same thing. Here too, I guess I didn't again, the engineer was just giving me too many flashbacks to Alien Resurrection with the really bad looking albino baby alien who I didn't really care for. And so I guess it was just a little hard for me. And also, I would have just liked them to leave it a little bit of mystery with you know, what's her name in stasis with the being inside her or whatever, the black goo inside her. And since she's in stasis, she doesn't actually change. And that way you leave a nice little cliffhanger for if they do a sequel, she gets thawed, boom, creatures there, and you start your chaos on your other planet right away. If that's what, and again, it's minor though, because overall, watching this took me back to the 80s sci-fi, and yes, this is a get my off my lawn moment, but it's still the sheer fact of mad props to Fetty Alvarez to sticking to his guns and trying to do as much practical as possible. Because when you watch this film, you realize how much you miss practical sets. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they built a lot of sets in this, and it's not stagecraft sets. A lot of these sets are actual sets, like built, structures, and I was there for it. I mean, that won me over for the most part right there was just that. And then how everything didn't look clean. He kept it grimy. Even the graphics were rough looking and the sounds. And you had an excellent feeling of constant threat in this film, too. You know, whether they were on the planet and she had to get off because she was going to get put into the mine, and they even had the little canary in a cage gimmick. I like whether it was that to where she was going to have to possibly work in the mine till they get on the space station, and every along the way, it's always hostile and things don't go the way they planned, which I also liked. Is
Hmm.
that they take a little bit of risks here with none of their plans work
They
properly.
don't.
N Because this is just, like you said, a group of young adults who are just looking to pull a quick heist and get the hell out of here, not thinking of anything else. So even with the acid thing, creative, okay, 0 G, we're gonna shoot the xenomorphs with the acid blood. The acid blood won't fall, so we can kinda navigate through. But she doesn't think that far ahead going, "Well, eventually that blood's gonna have to touch something."
Well, and then I mean, and even if it's that's the one thing though, it yeah, because it didn't fall because you know when it's gonna fall, then it's gonna go through the hull and the whole thing is gonna go to shit. And you're right. Like I mean, it's what this is set in 2142. They're still using canaries in mines in even far off planets. Way to go, modern technology. That's how you do that. It's like, you know what we're gonna do? Forget all these things that you do with the Whaling Corporation because we're one of the biggest conglomerates in, technology and all
Mhm.
that stuff. What we're gonna do, we're gonna give you canaries. So not only will these help you tell you if there's gas in the mines, but they give you a pet. So there you go. We're doing it's a 2 for 1 for you. You're
Well,
welcome.
and canaries are probably cheaper to clone or create than it would be for technology to have a sensor down there, you know, and
Probably.
and also, if you think about it, and this is my mind was going afterwards about how this one movie helped give you even a whole nother layer of understanding with Wayland and their business practices with these, edge colonies and that, uh, doing the canaries leaves them no responsibility versus a tech that would fail. In this case,
Ooh,
they give it a canary, they tell you how to use the canary, how to train the canary, it's
that's
on
your fault.
you. The
It's not
onus
on
is on
you.
you. If you don't pay attention to the canary and there's gas in the that's not us. We
It's you.
gave you a method to do it. Whereas if it was tech with a sensor that failed, well, then they could blame it on them. And, also I like the setup because some of the questions it leaves, and I was thinking about this after I did my review. I'm like, with aliens, some of the questions it leaves, because aliens takes place 56 years after this.
Mm,
Because Alien, she got ejected and she was 76 years in the future when Aliens happens, according to
37
oh, no,
years
it was
after
37, not 60.
Romulus.
I don't know why I was thinking 50. I don't know why I was thinking 75.
Well,
It was
because it's 50 Alien is and then Aliens is 57 years after Alien.
right.
So then
So,
this is 20 years after
okay, my
Alien.
math is I was thinking I got dyslexic. I was thinking 75, it was 57 in Aliens. But still, you're looking at, what, 37 years after this incident before it shows up. So, but talking with you now, it makes more sense with Paul Reiser's character, because by then they learned where the origins, well, even 20 years later, they learned where the origins of this xenomorph came. It came from Ripley's incident. They weren't quite sure the planet, but they knew it they tracked it to where that explosion was, I'm guessing, or whatnot. Uh, so they needed to get back to LV-426. It's why he wanted to get there. It wasn't that they didn't know these xenomorphs were there. They knew there. In fact, they knew, 30 years prior, but that space station blew up, which had most of the research on it. They didn't have backups. Shame on them. So it took them a while. But I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, I had the questions up. I'm like, well, it can be explained away, most of it, of why the company was the way it was in Aliens. And like you said, they may have knew all along and they just kept it covered up. They knew this whole time and they've been looking for aliens and xenomorphs this whole time. It wasn't just Ripley's report that tagged them to it. So, and even then, with this be 20 years after the event of Alien, she does file her report, which would have got transmitted, which they would have found out, which could be how they found the alien in the rock.
Maybe.
You know, and I know some people out there probably want the answers for that. I don't mind that because I'm like, with it being science fiction and how they portray things in this one, there's many different plausible explanations of why things are the way they are in Aliens as far as their behavior towards xenomorphs.
See, you just actually brought up a very good point that I kind of brought up earlier too, is the fact that in Alien, if she's been in space 57 years and they didn't know where she was, and yet in Romulus, they definitely make it seem like the space station is going after the specific, you know, big mound of what looks like a meteor, but it is the alien. Why would they be going after that unless they had known anything or gotten some sort of transmission that Ripley sent? But in Aliens, we definitely are made to feel like that didn't happen at all. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because when I was watching Prometheus, see, this is like we're all going back and forth. Watching Prometheus, realizing that that's LV 426, right?
Right. Mhm.
Yeah. So
Right.
Prometheus, I mean, thank goodness Ripley did nuke the planet because I mean, we all know that if you watch Prometheus, there's more ships. There's more ships and there's more of that black goo that actually can destroy, everything. So again, way to go in Aliens. You guys actually saved the universe by blowing up that thing. But here's Paul Reiser. I always thought it was weird, though, that Paul Reiser would be involved in going to
Right.
LV 426. I mean, basically, you're a pencil pusher and a
Mhm.
business guy. So why are you on this mission? Other than being the humanoid version of Ash.
Yeah, I always loved his character though. I loved the enigma of his character. The reason, it was corporate though representation, and if you've worked in any larger corporation, it wasn't beyond on it wasn't beyond the realm of possibility that he would ride with them to be a basically spy and watchdog of how the mission was going. You
Well, and
know,
actually, I'm answering my question myself because he even said it's like, we're going to make a bunch of money off
right.
this. So it's like, if we're both smart, we can end up with a lot. It's like a lot of that cash and all that
Mhm.
stuff. It's like you from the beginning knew like how bad these things were, and yet you're still trying to get them in the thing. That was one of the things with Alien 3 that I hated was
Mhm.
like, where the hell do these space huggers come from? I mean, by that time, it's not like you had them in the packages or anything like that. They're supposed to come from the eggs. There were no eggs on that ship. There were no eggs anywhere. So
Yeah.
where did these space huggers come from that would have gotten into um the thing with Ripley
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
Hicks.
well, that was the other thing that bugged me with Alien 3 was that suddenly it's like, wait, there's a face hugger on the ship. How now?
Well, there's got to be more than one because I mean, once once it gets inside you, then
Right.
it just is like a shell. So basically, it's dead, which then We don't see that on the ship and
Mhm.
all that. I don't know, it was just dumb. I was
Alien
just mad about that.
there was a comic tie-in that explained it a little more. There was supposedly, possibly that, it was implied that, oh, I forgot his name, Paul Reiser. Would you say Paul Reiser? Uh, he snuck an egg on the ship. There's a possibility that they were trying to but it's still Alien 3, yeah, just does not sit well with me. But back to Alien Romulus,
Yes, back to Alien
what
Romulus.
you know, they set it up enough to where you could probably explain away most things as we're trying to do here in this last like 10 minutes here. Um, of why things were the way they were in Aliens. With them being a kind of shady company, they very well may known a lot, and they were playing off, you know, and those even interrogating Ripley in Aliens may not have known. Only the upper ups may have known about the actual research station and the xenomorphs and such like that. So, you know, um, yeah. So I dug this. This is probably my 3rd favorite Alien film, Alien, Romulus. I didn't quite care for Prometheus and Covenant. I still enjoyed them quite a bit. I didn't look back to see what I rated them. Covenant I enjoyed a bit more than Prometheus, because Covenant was the 2nd one. I the 2nd one, though, I didn't need that was another one where I didn't need the origin story of the eggs. The alien eggs, when they end it with that mid-credit sequence where I'm like, "I didn't need to know that." I we okay, fine. You know, and yeah, I guess it was just a little bit mixed bag near the end for me, but for the most part, Alien Romulus, I had so much fun as a sci-fi fan. It took me back. It was like, "This, we need more of this." Take note, and he made it for a relatively cheap budget compared to a Marvel film.
Yeah.
And this was like 80 million, 90, 80 or 90 million, which is cheap for sci-fi films, and he did a lot of practical stuff. Now, granted, the character, another thing is, didn't really get any big name actors, but you
Yes.
you didn't need them. You had some talent here in the main roles. In all honesty, in true horror fashion, our 3 main characters, for the most part, and actually our 2 main characters, Rain and Andy, are the 2 that are the most developed. Everybody else is kind of a single note. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm fully acknowledging that, but saying that doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing if everything else in the situation that you've got going on is interesting, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in here, more so than not interesting stuff, and the film moved. Like I said, it stuff kept happening.
Yes.
It was like they did for a 2-hour movie, they didn't waste a whole lot of time in here.
Oh,
Um
no, it definitely I mean, the pace was like go, 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 go once you got on that space station.
mhm, and yeah, outside of some minor quibbles, it was far better than expected. Let's put it that way. When I saw, because I was mixed feelings on the Evil Dead remake, uh, as well. Well, requel, whatever, you probably more of a requel. I was a little bit okay. I do like Don't Breathe quite a bit. The first one, second one, I did not like. Um, but this one, yeah, it was far better and more enjoyable than I thought it was gonna be, and it's back to its horror roots, and it still had some action in there, which was nice. So, I think it hit exactly what most fans wanted, and I know you're a big fan and you had a mixed feelings, but still, would you say it was better than possibly expected?
I went in with no expectations, but, like I said, I found more that I liked about it than I disliked about it.
Mhm.
I like Fede Alvarez that he, um, has female protagonists who really, like, kick ass, and I
Mhm.
think Kaylee Spaney was a good choice. I like that from the beginning to the end, they made as you said, it was I mean, in the beginning, it just felt very grimy and gritty, and so were the characters. They weren't polished. They weren't,
Mhm.
your nitty gritty at everything. They all had complex little backstories that we didn't get to hear the full thing about them, but that's fine. We all know it seems like all their parents died horrible ways. They have that in common, and they're gonna die too if they don't get off this planet. And of his three films, I think this is my favorite of his three.
Yep.
I have issues with the script in Don't Breathe. I have issues with some of the idiosyncrasies that we talked about. That it's like for a guy who but yeah, I feel like this is kind of Don't Breathe in space. I would recommend seeing this if you have not seen the other Alien films and actually don't know anything about it. I actually think that's better. I
Mhm.
think that's better if for a standalone film.
And that's
Because
the thing it could very well be a standalone film, and that's what I liked about it as well. It's a story within the universe that they explain enough to where you don't necessarily need to see the other films to enjoy this one. It helps, but it doesn't you don't have to see
yeah,
these. But
I
there
mean,
this Oh, go ahead.
oh no, with this, like I don't know if you would necessarily need a sequel with this unless they
Mm-mm.
do try and do something that's inside Kay, who was the pregnant person. If they do
Right.
something with her, I don't know where the story would go after that though, because I mean they're supposed to be going to this planet that's has the sun and all that stuff. I really don't see how they're supposed to be doing that with their little crappy little ship, because I mean that to me seems a little far fetched, but whatever. Especially, I think it's what 7 years or 6 years they're
It's
supposed to be in there,
yeah, it's something like 6, like 7,
or
6 or
nine. I
9,
forget.
9 years. It was
I
9
think it was
years.
9 years. I mean, that's a long time to be in cryo sleep with that little crap fest that they have going on in space. So, and the only reason why I say that is because there's different space movies where it's like, there's meteors, there's a solar flare, and those
Mhm.
freaking ginormous ships like get off course and end up, people getting killed. I'm like,
Uh,
good luck with your little rust bucket in space.
well, that's why you
But
have the synth, though, driving it too, so,
yeah,
but
I mean, he should be awake, so he hopefully
mhm. No,
he'll.
the only thing I could see them taking the sequel to, because we don't ever see it actually happening, is the sample vials overall are still on the ship of the black goo.
Hmm.
So, I know we're going a little long, but, there's a lot to unpack with this film, in all honesty. So this is where I would see, not saying I'm with you, I don't need a sequel. We could
Yeah,
go you could, if you wanted to watch these, you could watch Alien, this, and Aliens. They would all fit because of the production design Freddy Alvarez gave this film. You could watch all 3 and they would all fit in the same universe. But if you are going to do the sequel, they don't show the destroyal of the black goo vials. We just see her take one. So they're still on the ship. So the way I picture it is that they make it to the planet. Their ship is received. If they can't get Andy back, oh no, great. Now we're just going to pull an Alien 3 and he dies. But no, I think they're going to keep Andy and not tell that he's a synth,
yeah,
okay, so that he can come down the planet. But whoever salvages or rescues their ship finds the container of the black goo and not sure what it was, take it back to their happy planet where they're at, and then you get a scientist down there who takes a look at it, figures out kind of what it does some experiment, and boom, now you've got an alien outbreak in your happy planet thanks to someone finding the vials of black goo, which we don't know what has happened to them by the end of this film. And I think that was on purpose. I think
yeah,
that's on purpose because I think that will be the MacGuffin that is used for a sequel that could still fit within the story. Because especially if you go to another planet and that planet's cut off from synth and other things and it's just trying to be its own colony, you can still have it be a standalone and not affect aliens,
yeah.
essentially.
I could
So,
see that. I personally would have liked a sequel to Covenant. I know
mm,
Covenant was a sequel to Prometheus, but I think that the ending of Covenant was so rich with the different things with David and then
Yeah.
picking up, all little embryos and stuff like that. And also with Covenant, I mean, you lost 10 people in your crew. I really hope that in those, cryo tubes with the colonists and all that stuff, that you have some extra,
Yeah.
standby people, because you've got your driver, what the driver or pilot,
Pilot.
you've got
Yeah.
your pilot and you've got the captain who was three people deep because everyone else has died. So that would be very interesting when they got to where they're supposed to go and what would
Mhm.
happen with them. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I think Ridley may be done with these, which is a shame because honestly, there were things with I don't know, there were things with Covenant that I thought they were the most inept um military group I've ever seen in a film,
Yes. Yeah.
because and that's one of the things I said in my review. It's like, what type of military things? Like, here's your orders. By the way, oh, you see this other thing? Yes, skip those orders altogether. So I know you're military people. Who cares about orders? We're just going to go check out this planet with the majority of our crew
Yeah.
on this ship. No, that would not happen. You'd maybe have three people. I've seen enough Star Trek, kill the person in the red shirt and then get off the planet. That's all you need to do. And then, wipe your hands and we ventured and that's it. But yeah, Covenant was just dumb in so many ways. But I really would like to see a sequel to it because I think there's a possibility of a really good sequel. But as you've said with this one, the casting in this basically, way smaller budget for the cast than any in Prometheus or Covenant. So I could see if they're going to do go in a different direction with that, they're probably going to do it with Romulus and see where it goes.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think with the money that it's making now, we'll see what legs it has in its second weekend. But without seeing too much competition coming up for it next weekend, let's see what's I forgot what's coming out next weekend.
Blink
Um,
twice.
yeah, okay. So there's not a lot of competition for Alien Romulus.
Not too much.
Um,
I personally like Blink Twice. I think I'm going to see that again on Wednesday, depending on the
I
DNC, or I may be reviewing this, on another thing with you on Wednesday.
I don't even know
But
what
I,
Blink Twice is.
huh?
I don't even know what Blink Twice is.
Oh, Blink Twice is the movie that Zoe Kravitz directed with Channing Tatum.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen any promo material whatsoever here in central Wisconsin or trailer.
Good. No, good. Don't watch anything regarding it because obviously trailers are stupid and give everything away. Same thing with Speak No Evil. Don't watch anything regarding that film because the trailer gives a huge reveal away in the trailer, which every time they keep showing the trailer for Speak No Evil and it just gets me more and more mad. But Blink Twice, don't watch the trailer. I actually love the movie.
Mhm.
One thing I did want to say though is that with Alien Romulus, you could get one of
That
these,
is so cool. I
or
so
you
am.
should get one of these if you can. Get one real quick because it's amazing.
I'm
I'm
gonna
not going to put any popcorn in it.
no.
No way, Jose. But
I am envious of your xenomorph head though.
I mean, this is awesome.
That
And
is
then I
very
got this little
awesome.
shirt. It says I'm a hugger, and it's got the face hugger. And then I got
Your
my
hat.
hat.
Sweet. Ah, merch, baby, merch.
Merch.
Well, thank you, who also is awesome, Katie Glidewell, for talking with me on Romulus, Alien Romulus. Well, we enjoyed it at various levels. I think overall, as Alien fans, we're happy with it. It gave me, some excitement for sci-fi again that wasn't comic book. While I know this is IP, it really felt like it, outside of the Easter eggs, of more of its standalone type of thing, and just the look of it in general. If anything, see it for the fact that Fede Alvarez stuck with so much practical, and you can tell the difference. A lot of the face huggers were actual animatronics as well, and you can tell, and it was wonderful with the lighting and everything. So yeah, I would recommend it for sure.
Yeah, I recommend it. You did actually bring up a point with since no one was supposed to know that Ripley was in that ship, and yet they went and found the alien. Obviously, because they could have, they should, they. I'm like, wait a minute. Then they did here. That's something I didn't even think about. It's like you sons of bitches. So thank you for enlightening me on that. To
Yeah.
be even more mad, not listening to the lady with the cat. Um,
Well,
and yeah, Naaman Marshall, who did production design, Benjamin Wallfish, who did original music.
oh
They
yeah,
did
the
use
music.
a little bit from Goldsmith, but still, the original music in here was honestly fantastic.
The original music in here felt very much in the spirit of Goldsmith.
Yeah,
When I heard it in the beginning, I'm like, "Oh, this is original theme." I'm like, "Oh, but you're sounding like Goldsmith
yeah,
from Alien." I'm like, "Mad props." A little bit of Smith, a little bit of Horner. They do reuse some tracks from the other movies, which is fine. They call back to some themes in the music, but the original music, you're right, is like Goldsmith and Horner and done. I thought it was very fitting too.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Katie, where can they find your stuff at?
They can find me at the Blonde in Front, TheBlondeInFront on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. You can find my posts, my reels, and I'm trying to make sure that I post all of the um, podcasts and vlogcasts that I'm on each of my different social media sites. So go see them there.
Awesome. Yes, check it all out. She is a wonderful critic. She's a critic's critic, at least for me, for this critic.
Uh,
Um, so thank you, Katie. And yes, folks, until next time, we'll just say keep that ticket stub.